my channel and welcome to a video where I'm going to do my makeup and review Drag Race All Stars 6. So in this video I'll be going through my thoughts on the new season of Drag Race, the first 5 episodes, and I'll be going through the challenges, who I thought should have been the tops and bottoms, and then I won't be going through all of the runway looks because it's just going to take a very long time and this video would end up far too long. But if you want me to do that, maybe I'll do that in the future. Just disregard the challenges and say who I think had the best runway look. I think that'd be quite interesting. So if you do want to see that, please just give this video a thumbs up and that will let me know. But anyway, on to my review. I will be looking at my computer screen the whole time because I wrote notes on every episode so I didn't miss anything or forget anything, because I watched lots of these episodes a long time ago, so it's been a while and my memory isn't great of them, quite honestly. And like I said, I'll be doing some makeup. I'm going to do some drag makeup today. I'm going to do a green and pink look to match my nails and also match my hair. Actually, I am going to be wearing a wig, but this hair is going to be quite useful for when I go out later and I don't have to wear a wig because it's so hot in England. It is 24 degrees today, which doesn't sound hot, but I live in England where we have no aircon and I can't open any of the doors or windows because I have a cat who will get out if I do that. Anyway, on to the first episode. So episode 1, we're introduced to all the queens and then they have a showcase. Now right from the get-go you see a little bit of unfair judging in this episode, but before we talk about that I'll talk about their entrances. When I heard the cast announced, I was most excited to see Raja, Silky and Kylie. Raja is honestly one of my favourite queens of all time and it made me really sad when he came in and said that no one liked him from his season. I liked him. I get that some people found her a little too abrasive. I didn't get that really. I thought that they were just speaking their mind and just being a normal person. It's reality TV. They are going to try and push a plot and they just chose Raja to be the villain. It's nothing to do with Raja and it just makes me sad that he feels like he has to do something different this time just to make people like him. And I really hope that she's still being herself and not putting on a character. And then we move on to the... oh, I'm not meant to be using this yet. And then we move on to the showcase. In the showcase there was quite a lot of lip syncing or just standing and singing, which I am personally not the biggest fan of. I get that they're drag queens and most of them do lip sync for a living. I don't know. They all kind of blend into one. Maybe it's because they're all right after the other, so only the really interesting ones really stand out to me. My favourite was definitely Scarlett. I very much enjoy burlesque. I've never seen a burlesque show actually. I always feel a little bit awkward going to that sort of show. I know Dita Fonteese is touring, but her tickets are so unbelievably expensive. But anyway, I just thought it was really interesting to use bubbles. I've never seen anyone do that before. If they have, please tell me because I want to see more bubble burlesque performances. I thought it was really cute and it goes really well with Scarlett's personality. And then my other two favourites were Raja and Jan. Jan had such an impressive voice. Like, so impressive. Like, honestly, they should be a professional singer rather than a drag queen because they obviously know what they're doing in that scenario. And then I loved Raja's performance, sewing a dress in a minute. I love stuff like that. I've seen it a few times, but that doesn't really take away from how good it is every time you see it. It is a trick, it's like a magic trick. They're not actually sewing the whole dress, you usually just cut a bit and then sew one seam. But maybe they did, I don't actually know. I have to look closer at the footage I think to see if they were doing more of a magic trick or more of an actual sewing a dress in a minute. And then there's Yara. Yara won this episode for a very strange lip sync. It wasn't my sort of thing, it's just not something that I really enjoy. But I definitely think Yara deserved the win just from the reaction of the people in the room. Like Ru was laughing so much at that. All the queens on the side were laughing as well. Everyone was just having a good time and I think that's what drag is meant to do. It's just meant to be a fun, relaxed sort of entertainment and I feel like Drag Race sometimes forgets that and takes itself a little tiny bit too seriously. I'm glad Yara brought that to the first episode. And then the bottom 3, I do agree with the bottom 3 with Serena going home. I think the reason Trinity didn't go is because Trinity obviously really tried to do it. He just didn't quite get it. But once he said the jokes they were funny. It's just leading up to the jokes and getting to the jokes that he was struggling with. I think that's just something that comes with time and will disappear when the nerves go. But Serena's just didn't make much sense. Like, why is she talking about styling wigs but not styling wigs? I thought when she came on the stage and started talking about styling wigs in her song that they were going to start actually styling a wig, kind of like what Raja did with the dress. Like a super quick wig styling, but they just didn't do much. And then Silky went out of time, and I do kind of disagree with Ross that piano work was not great. But instruments are hard, they're very hard. Believe me, I play 2 instruments and I hate playing both of them. Practicing an instrument is too much effort, quite honestly. It does sound good when you know what you're doing, but until you get to that point, it can sound pretty shaky, pretty bad, especially when you're trying to sing at the same time. I just think the Silky needed a little more practice on the piano skills, but I don't think that bad piano skills warrants going home, so I'm glad he was just in the bottom, but not in the bottom 2. So on to episode 2. Episode 2 is The Ball, which are quite honestly my favourite episodes of Drag Race. I am a huge fan of a ball. It's the only challenge I would want to do if I went on Drag Race. I don't think I'd do well, but I'd want to do it, especially when they're the unconventional ones. It makes it a little bit more interesting than the theming ones. And I like the idea of doing an all blue look. I don't think they've ever done everyone in the same colour before. I know they did the jewel tones one for season 6, but everyone had a different colour. So I think it's a good comparison to see everyone in the same colour and seeing what they do with the exact same colour. So my favourite looks of this week is Kylie. I think Kylie's looks look so cohesive. She did a really good job of making it all look like the same person. Like, not that the others don't look like the same person, they all have the same sort of essence. That Kylie essence where you look at it and you're like, yep, Kylie made this, Kylie would wear this, all very Kylie. Also, for the second looks, was part of the brief originally to do something to do with celebrity, because so many of them were inspired by celebrities. Like, we'll go back to Kylie, because I think Kylie's is the most obvious. Her look was very much a Christina Aguilera look. Like, through and through a Christina look. That must have been part of the original brief that they just missed out on when they actually filmed the show. So Raja wins this episode, and I'm not mad at Raja's win, because Raja is my favourite, and I want Raja to win. But I do think first look that she did was a little bit underwhelming. Like, I get that the judges really liked the hat on top of the hair, which I thought was cute, but then the rest of the outfit wasn't that innovative or interesting. It just wasn't elevated enough, make it properly draggy to me, which again is why I would have given the win to Kylie over Raja. But if we gave it to Kylie, we would have not got that iconic lip sync against Brooklyn Heights. Oh my god, that was amazing. Just seeing their different styles working so well together. They should do a show together. I would go. It would be wonderful. Bottom queens, for me, I do not know how Ginger is skating through with the looks that she brings to the runway. I just never like any of them, and it's a real shame because I absolutely love Ginger. Ginger is my favourite on season 7. Ginger's so good. Very good at drag, just needs to learn a little bit more about fashion. And then I feel like he'll be unstoppable and he'll be amazing. Like, could you just go to Kylie and be like, Kylie, teach me fashion? I'm sure Kylie would do it. I can't see Kylie being like, no, leave me alone, I do not want to talk to you. Because she seems like the sweetest little person. Another one that I didn't like, which I didn't understand why they were saved, was Pandora. The outfits were all very boring to me. And just like Ginger, I feel like Pandora doesn't have best sense of style. I mean, even on Pandora's original season, I think their style was pretty bad. And it's not like I am a style genius. It's just my personal taste. Well, obviously this is all my personal taste. Don't really know why I need to say that. Well, I don't really need to say that. I'm just saying it anyway for some reason. What was I talking about? Pandora. I just feel like a lot of Pandora's looks look the same, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. You know, get your branding, make sure people know who you are. But it doesn't mean you have to wear the same look all the time. Or maybe it's just because I feel the same about every single one of them. They read the same to me. And then Jiggly goes home. I do agree with this. I think that Jiggly definitely did the worst. I don't know how she hasn't learnt how to sew after all this time. Feels like it's a skill that she should have worked on before coming back to Drag Race, because you know they're going to force you to sew. On to episode 3. So the part of this one is the commercial challenge. I really enjoyed this challenge. It's the first group challenge we've seen this season. Fun. I feel like we usually get the group challenges later on, and they're in 3 groups, 2 of 3 and then 1 of 4, just because the numbers are a little bit odd, and they have to do their own commercials for a side hustle. So I'll do best to worst. For this episode, I agree with the judges wholeheartedly. I think that Trinity's team definitely did the best. Their advertisement was quick to the point. They had that little punchline that Pandora came up with that really made it clear what they were actually doing. Unlike the other two groups where they didn't have like a tagline, it was such a clever idea to have a tagline, and I think that is what gave them the win over the exercise group, just because it felt the most like a commercial, whereas the other two, you could argue, felt more like little skits, which isn't a bad thing. They just didn't necessarily read as much as a commercial as that one did. So the middle group is Kylie's group, the exercise group. In this team, Kylie was the weakest for me. I just wish she had put on a fake voice, kind of like how Scarlett did, rather than using her own voice, as I think that's why the judges think of her as being really quiet, which is not necessarily any quieter than the other queens. She's just a polite little lady, but when it comes to drag, being polite is not necessarily how you get things done. In this one, I think Eureka did the best. Eureka was actually my favourite performance, and if the other group hadn't been quite so good, I think they would have snatched the win quite easily, because they played to their own strengths, which was a very good idea. And then in the bottom is Akira's group. I think the reason they're in the bottom is mainly because it doesn't really read as a commercial. It read more kind of load of skits mixed together, which I guess is a commercial, but it didn't have anything holding it together, which left the viewer a little bit confused. I think they did have some good moments though, they just had too many ideas. The person who goes home is Silky. I do agree, but it made me very sad because obviously Silky went home because he was worried about coming across as too flamboyant on this season, which is a very good show of how the Drag Race fandom needs to cut these queens a little bit more slack. They are so harsh on them when they are not the ones who control the narrative of the TV show. Silky didn't ask to be painted as the villain of his season, and I don't think we should hold that against him, or hold it against any of the queens. Like I said for the first episode, Raja comes in saying, oh, everyone thinks I'm a bitch. What you see on TV are not real people, they are characters, and we need to remember that a bit more, I think. Episode 4, the plot is halftime shows. Now, I am not very familiar with any halftime shows. I don't think I've seen any of them. Musical performances just aren't really my thing to watch, and I'm not overly familiar with most of the people that are being played. So the people I'm most familiar with in this lineup is Madonna and Prince. For Prince is strangely non-specific but then also specific in the way he does all his performances, which I think is where Akira kind of fell, because I think she felt that if she just acted androgynous it would read correctly, but it doesn't really for Prince. Personally, I think that she would have done a better job at someone like David Bowie. I don't know if Bowie has ever performed as a halftime show. Again, I'm not very familiar with halftime shows in general, but if he has, that would have been such a good choice for her, because I feel like she kind of has some Bowie-esque mannerisms about her that would really read well in that sort of performance setting. I think Akira was so focused on, oh, I want to be different and I want to do a man, more than, oh, what am I going to be good at? And then Madonna, Eureka's wasn't my favourite. I know he was in the top, but it didn't necessarily read overly Madonna to me, other than the outfit. I've seen that outfit before. My dad's a big fan of Madonna, so I've seen her on the TV a few times. I don't know, maybe it was the choreography that wasn't very Madonna for me. Like, doesn't Madonna do like high kicks and things? But anyway, I don't think it was bad enough to be in the bottom. Definitely not. And then who I think should take the place of Eureka, I would say Kylie. I think Kylie did a very good job of being very masculine when in normal life Kylie is a very feminine woman. I think she did the biggest transformation from when we saw her perform as herself in the showcase and watching her perform as Steven Tyler. For the bottom, I definitely agree with Yara being in the bottom. I feel like if you don't lip sync and it's a lip sync challenge, you should go home for it. But I don't think I would necessarily put Akira down in the bottom over, again, why I keep on putting Raja in the bottom. I really want Raja to win, but I do think that his performance was the most boring this week, and that is kind of also down to the choreography, but she did kind of just stand there with a microphone and that's about it. And I know I was just a little bit disappointed, seeing as we saw how good Raja is performing as Raja. I feel like he could have put more to the person he was performing as. I can't remember who it was. And then for the tops, I would have given the win to Scarlett. I thought Scarlett gave the most energy and the most interesting performance, because Scarlett was the only one who changed outfit halfway through the performance, and I thought that was a good thing to add, especially when you're doing someone like Katy Perry, who I know is known for changing costumes and her insane costumes on stage. So changing costumes is very in the character of Katy Perry. And from all the music videos I've seen of her, because my dad is also obsessed with Katy Perry, absolutely loves her, that is definitely how she acts. With Jan taking home the win, Jan's performance was too much for me, but maybe that's just because I am not overly familiar with how Lady Gaga performs. I like Lady Gaga's songs, more of the older ones that they play in clubs. I've never really gone out my way to listen to Lady Gaga. But I don't remember her being that strange in her music videos. But maybe he was basing it off of her performance in the Super Bowl that I have not seen. And that's what the judges were seeing, because obviously I think if you're going to judge this episode of the show, you'd have to go back and watch all of these performers at their halftime shows and compare it to that, not just what they know of the singers, but what they did actually at that performance centre. But I'm not a professional judge of Drag Race, so I do not have to do that. But yes, from judges' reactions and how they did the end judging when they're all sat on the panel, I definitely think that Jan was the rightful winner even before they announced it. And that is Jan's first win ever, which is very fun, because I really like Jan. I feel like he gets pushed down a little bit. It's nice to see him finally win a challenge. I'm gonna shut up because otherwise I can't draw my lips. These lips are the only thing I don't wear out. Like when I'm gonna go into town later, I'm gonna redo my lips to look normal. Okay, now we're gonna go on to the final episode, which is episode 5. This one is a little bit strange to me on a reality TV show. I really liked the challenge, but I feel like it's strange to have that sort of thing as a challenge, because you're judging them as people rather than as drag queens, and it is a drag show at the end of the day, so I wouldn't want to judge this personally as a judge on the panel, because these people are being very vulnerable, and then to be like, oh no, I don't like your personality, is a little bit strange to me, especially when they're not putting on a character despite the judges saying they are. Jan is not putting on a character. I know people like Jan, and they are real people. And just because it's a personality trait that you don't necessarily have, doesn't mean that other people can't. And I feel like that's where the judges fall short. They're kind of judging Jan as if this is a character because they do not know Jan personally. But they've never tried to get to know Jan personally, because this is a reality TV show. So it just doesn't quite make sense to me to bring Jan down for something that he doesn't have control over. That's just how she is. And I feel like we should just let her be who she is. And then with Scarlett, I feel like it's very inappropriate to say that she made it uncomfortable. Like, Scarlett didn't do anything wrong by changing between the drag persona and his real persona. Just because, yeah, it's a little bit jarring doesn't mean it's uncomfortable. But regardless of that, I do think this episode is a very good episode because it talks about a lot of topics that people don't talk about. Like, Trinity talks about being HIV positive, which is something that lots of people are very scared to open up about. Akira talks about detransitioning, which is something that has a lot of stigma around it, even in the trans community. Raja talked about her strained relationship with her mother, which a lot of people can definitely relate to. Scarlett talked about gay parents. Ginger talked about how an operation changed the course of her life. Pandora talked about ageism. The list goes on. Everyone talked about something really important, whether it be big or small. And I feel like it became a little bit overshadowed by the judges judging them too harshly on things that are out of their control. I feel like this episode should have been more maybe like a podcast episode rather than a talk show episode, because the segment where they had a box and they had to guess what the item was so misplaced next to all these conversations, and they didn't even seem like sponsored segments. I get the TV show needs sponsors, but these segments didn't seem sponsored. They just seemed very strange. And maybe these are commonplace in talk shows. I don't really watch talk shows, but I feel like they weren't needed. Maybe they were trying to cut the tension. I don't know. Either way, they should have taken those out most definitely. So for the tops and bottoms this week, they're judged in groups, but then also not judged in groups, which was a little bit strange. I feel like you should do either one or the other. And I think the only reason that this happened is because in the commercial challenge, Ru wanted to give the win to Ginger, but that challenge was judged in groups. And then in this one, Ginger is also in the lowest group, and he wants to give it to him again. Because Ginger does do a good job. He's very funny, tells a good story, all of that. I just wish the win had been more cohesive with the judging, I guess. And then for the bottom, I would not put Kylie in the bottom at all. I do not think she deserved to be in the bottom. I feel like she did quite a good job as mediator, especially seeing she's never done it before. And then I would have put Pandora in the bottom because Pandora talked the least out of anyone. So my bottom would have been Jan, Pandora, and like maybe Scarlett, but not really Scarlett, because I don't think Scarlett did anything to deserve being the bottom really either. Rue just didn't like Scarlett switching between two personas. But that dress, the beautiful dress with the love letters on it, honestly, should have saved him. And I think it's a little bit unfair to send him home when I feel like someone like Jan or Pandora deserve to go home more. I think that's all of my notes. That was the final episode. I'm just gonna finish my makeup. I've only a few more things left to do. And then I'm gonna come back with my final thoughts on this whole series. So this is the final pink and green drag look. I'm not a huge fan of how it turned out. Definitely done better with this colour theme. So I'll be doing it again at some point, trying something different. I'm really not happy with this actually. Looking at it now, maybe black will fix it. I mean, that looks a little bit better. We're just gonna leave it. So my final thoughts on this series is that it's a good series. I think it's enjoyable. I think the judging is a little bit off. I think the judges are a little bit harsh. I know it's an all-stars, but I feel like they're being a little bit too hard, especially on people like Jan and Scarlett. Maybe even Kylie. Kylie keeps on getting kind of pushed to the background for some reason. And the tops and the bottoms are definitely off in almost every episode. So hopefully as the season continues, it will get a little bit more even and we'll get a more obvious front runner. We don't really have an obvious front runner right now. It could be argued that it's Ginger, but then Ginger's fashion isn't brilliant, and Ginger has been in the two worst groups on the group challenges despite winning one of them. I honestly don't know. I'm still rooting for Raja to win, and then maybe even Kylie. I would love to have a woman win Drag Race. We never had a female winner before, so I think that'd be really cool. And I will definitely do another video like this in a couple of weeks when the next 5 episodes come out. I don't know how many episodes there are going to be in total. It's going to be probably between 12 and 15 episodes. We will see. I honestly can't be able to do the math. Work out how many episodes there would be, but we don't know what the twist is yet. And I'm very looking forward to that. But anyway, if you did enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up. Tell me what else you'd like me to do down in the comments below. I do anything makeup, cosplay or art related. And if you did enjoy this video, please subscribe as I post a new video every Wednesday and Friday. And I'd love to see you again. But for now, bye!